Welcome back to the channel. So I've got my test rig with my E93A engine on it. You've seen it before, but I've now put all the instrumentation on. So the plan now is to run this engine at a sort of an idle speed for 10-15 minutes and see what happens, and then run it at a fast idle around about 2000 revs, which is sort of comparable with driving at 20-30 miles an hour. For again another 15 to 20 minutes and see what happens. Some of the modifications I've done since you last saw this test rig. As you can see, there's now an exhaust with a silencer wrapped in bandage to stop me burning myself. I've sort of sealed it onto the exhaust manifold as best I can. I've had to put a heat shield on because the heat from the exhaust was overheating the intake manifold. I've wrapped the exhaust manifold as well with some bandage. Another modification, essential modification in this case, because the test rig is not moving, it does overheat and boils the radiator. So I've got this fan which is going to blow air and simulate the truck moving. The instrumentation that I've got a RPM meter connected to the first cylinder ignition wire. I've got an oil pressure gauge. I've got a temperature indicator on the sump, just where the oil pickup is. I've got a temperature indicator on the inlet manifold to see what's happening there, and a radiator in, a radiator out temperature, and a dynamo voltage. So I've got a 1000 test sheet and then a 2000 test sheet, exactly the same, and you can see the minutes. So this is the starting conditions there, all labelled up. So I'll be taking those readings. And you can see there a 0 to 60 psi pressure gauge connected to where the oil comes out to go to the oil filter. And you can see under here I've wrapped the exhaust manifold to try and keep it cooler, because it really does get the temperature hot. And you can see there how the temperature probes are just stuck on with that silver foil, sticky silver foil. Seems to work okay. And pick up the RPM, the number 1 ignition lead is wrapped with this wire. That's what it tells you to do in the instructions, and it seems to work. Right, then we'll get it turned on, put the fan on, and then I'll start the engine. And it is very noisy and I won't be able to talk, so I'll have to use subtitles. And this is the results. We've got an idle around about 1000 test, and then we've got a 2000 test, and overall we've 40 minutes worth of running, which is probably 20-30 miles an hour, like 15 to 20 miles of actual running. So I'm going to put these into Excel, graph them, and discuss them a bit more. Okay, so this is the results. We've got a idle about 1000 for 15 minutes, and then from 15 minutes to 40 minutes we ran around about 2000. You can see the oil pressure, the grey bars increased when the revs went up, as you'd expect, and tailed off a little bit as the oil temperature rose. But it steadied out eventually about 25 psi. I don't know whether that's good or bad. I guess I'll find out as time goes by. The radiator temperature in red kept climbing, but started to steady itself out. But that was really because I was making sure the fan was blowing well on the radiator. I've now ordered a clip-on fan with a temperature switch, so hopefully electric fan is going to come in automatically and I can get rid of that great big noisy fan that I had, the big blue one, in the future, and better control the temperature. You could see earlier that it was steaming and coming out of the cap of the radiator. And the blue line, the inlet manifold temperature, sort of steadied off. You can see that it dipped down when I put the revs up, because obviously the airflow increased through the manifold, which must have cooled it a bit. But it seemed to steady out. It likes it better at higher revs than low revs. Just kept rising, and eventually it vaporizes the fuel in the inlet manifold too much. Anyway, that's the end of this part. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, like it, or put comments in if you don't like it. The next parts I'm going to do are going to be building an E93 engine from a block, putting the crankshaft in, putting the pistons in, doing measurements, stuff like that, building it all up, and ultimately putting it on this test rig and running it. So I look forward to you watching that. Thank you very much.